tightening the belt a little more. Grocery runs turned into quiet negotiations with herself, a bag of apples set aside, a bottle of olive oil returned to the shelf, a carton of milk abandoned. Some nights, while Daniel breathed steadily in his unbroken sleep, Emily sat alone in the dark, silent tears tracing lines down her cheeks, trapped in a helplessness that felt colder than steel. And then Victor Lang showed up. His black SUV rolled up the gravel driveway like an unwelcome shadow, and Victor stepped out, wrapped in a sleek leather jacket, his smile smooth to the point of being obscene. Tucked under his arm was a glossy folder, as if he already held the power to sign away everything Emily loved. "Mrs. Carter," Victor said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "I heard about your situation. I'm here to assist." The word help slipped from his tongue like honey, but Shadow, standing firm at the door, sensed the truth beneath the polished surface. Danger. The fur along Shadow's spine bristled, and a low growl rumbled from his aging chest. Victor Lang hadn't come to help. He had come to take, to snatch away the land filled with memories for pennies on the dollar, feeding on Emily's desperation. But to Emily, this wasn't just a piece of property. It was where she and Daniel had planted their first flowers, where they swayed on the old porch swing on crisp autumn afternoons, where laughter and promises still lingered in the stones and trees. It wasn't a house. It was their heart. Weary but unbroken, Emily stood tall, Shadow steady at her side. She lifted her chin, her voice clear and unwavering. "This home is not for sale." The pressure didn't just come from the cold numbers in the bank account. It seeped into every glance, every heavy silence within the long, sterile halls of Riverside Hospital. The Carter family had made Daniel's hospital room their second home, and amid the steady beeping of machines and the shallow rise and fall of Daniel's chest, the battle between hope and reality played out day after day. Every time Michael, Emily, and Daniel's eldest son flew home from the city, the room seemed to grow heavier. One late evening, crammed into the small, dimly lit room, Michael finally spoke, his voice rough and worn. "Mom, please," he said, the words tearing at him. "We can't keep doing this. Dad's not coming back. The doctors have said so." Emily gripped the flimsy hospital coffee cup tighter, her knuckles white. "Your father is still fighting, and so am I." Michael looked away, unable to meet her eyes. "It's not that I don't love him," he whispered, his chest rising and falling unevenly. "But you're breaking yourself apart day after day, waiting for a miracle that may never come." He didn't say it, but Emily understood. Michael wasn't abandoning his father. He simply couldn't bear to watch his mother's spirit erode under the relentless weight of hope. He wanted her to be free to live. Throughout these tear-stained conversations, Shadow kept his silent vigil. The old shepherd lay pressed against Daniel's bedside, amber eyes following every movement, every word. Lisa, the younger daughter, was the only one who stood unshaken. "He's still here," she whispered, stroking Shadow's graying fur. "He just needs more time." Every time someone spoke of letting go, Shadow inched even closer to Daniel, letting out a low whine as if his aging heart was protesting with all the strength it had left. The battle between hope and reality wasn't fought in conference rooms or on financial charts. It was fought here, in this cold hospital room, under the pale lights, between the shallow breaths of a man who hadn't given up and the steadfast heartbeat of a dog who never would. Riverside Hospital was wrapped in a heavy gray haze that morning, as if the long, endless years had soaked into every wall and sterile hallway. It had been over 2 years since Daniel Carter was brought here. 2 years of steady machines and fragile hopes suspended by every shallow breath. Inside the small ICU room, Emily sat by Daniel's side, gently stroking his motionless fingers, whispering promises she wasn't sure he could hear. Lisa sat by the window, reading softly, her voice a thread of sound barely stirring the still air. Michael leaned against the wall, arms crossed, the weight of fear and love shadowing his face. And Shadow, the silent soldier, lay by Daniel's side, his graying muzzle resting on the crisp white mattress, his amber eyes never wavering. His coat had dulled, his body grown thin, but the fire in his gaze burned brighter than ever. Daniel would come back. Shadow knew it. The sterile stillness of the ICU shattered as the door burst open, and Shadow launched into the room like a living missile. His dark gray coat gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, muscles rippling, eyes burning with fierce determination. Shadow slammed into Dr. Harris, sending the syringe spinning from his hand and clattering onto the floor. "Get this animal out of here!" Dr. Harris screamed, stumbling backward as Shadow clamped his jaws onto the white coat sleeve, pulling with a force fueled by pure, desperate will. 3 security guards rushed forward, but halted instantly as a low, primal growl rumbled from deep in Shadow's chest. Not a growl of aggression, but of raw, pleading urgency. Nurse Emily Wilson pressed herself against the wall, clutching her clipboard tightly to her chest, whispering, "Oh my God." The doorway filled with more security staff, their hands hovering near their belts, frozen by the sheer intensity of the scene. Shadow wasn't attacking wildly. He deliberately planted himself between the medical team and Daniel Carter, the motionless man lying on the hospital bed. Then, piercing the tension, came a faint sound, a soft beep from the heart monitor. Another and another. The heartbeat, silent for 2 long years, began to pulse, stronger and more insistent. Dr. Harris stood frozen, staring wide-eyed at the monitor. Shadow's intelligent amber eyes locked onto the doctor's face, as if to say, "I told you he wasn't gone." Shadow suddenly shot upright, his entire body tense, a sharp whine breaking the stillness. Emily's heart stopped in her chest. She followed Shadow's gaze and saw it. Daniel's finger, lifeless for over 2 years, twitched. Shadow leapt onto the edge of the bed, pressing his cold nose against Daniel's hand, and again, stronger this time, Daniel's fingers curled around the familiar fur. "Daniel," Emily breathed, her hand trembling as she reached for his. The monitors erupted, heart rate climbing, brain waves surging, the once flat lines coming alive. Lisa dropped her book, tears streaming freely down her face. Michael froze, disbelief and hope warring in his eyes. Nurses and doctors rushed into the room, alarms and urgent voices filling the space, but Emily saw only one thing: Daniel's frail, desperate hand clutching Shadow, holding on to the only lifeline he had never lost. Then, slowly, Daniel's eyes that had been closed for 2 long, silent years, fluttered open. At first, they were unfocused, searching, but as his gaze found Emily's tearful face, Lisa's shaking hands, and Michael's stunned expression, a weak, fragile smile lit his features, and pure, unfiltered happiness gleamed in his eyes. Daniel couldn't speak yet, but his eyes spoke volumes. He knew, he felt it, and he was happy, because when he found his way back, his family was still there, waiting, loving him every step of the way. The dream was no longer just a dream. Daniel Carter, the man the world had quietly prepared to mourn, was finding his way home. Daniel had awakened, and each passing day, he seemed to step a little further out of the deep darkness that had held him captive for so long. But while the Carter family basked in new hope, one member was fighting a quieter battle: Shadow. Emily was the first to notice the change. Shadow, the